Having and expressing emotional needs is the best thing that you could ever do for a man. Your emotional intimacy is going to take that man into new heights in every single aspect of his life. I am so excited for you to listen to this episode, Miranda. Can you feel the excitement and the passion in my voice? You're going to love it. Okay, let me get into this intro. Your soulmate, your divine counterpart, the man who God has created and set apart to be your husband, that man is a man who is pursuing and living in his zone of genius. And the man living in his zone of genius is pursuing an emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven life. In that pursuit, he intentionally challenges and expands his comfort zone. That man shows up for the hard conversations. That man doesn't run away. On the other hand, the man who lives in his zone of excellence, well, he's mildly challenged, but he's mostly comfortable. He goes for the low-hanging fruit, and that's mostly evident in his dating life. And he's probably incredibly successful according to external standards. Right now, we live in a time where society teaches men to seek out their zone of excellence, which is a place where they can prove their worth to others without ever challenging themselves to fulfill their purpose and truly serve their communities, like in the greatest capacity, right? It's important that you, Miranda, as a divine feminine or a girlfriend or a wife, can differentiate between zone of excellence living and zone of genius living, because only one of those is going to get you an amazing relationship and life with your soulmate. In today's episode, we're defining zone of genius versus zone of excellence living. I'm breaking down exactly why the zone of excellence is one hell of a dangerous drug. And we're briefly discussing how you can hold an energy that supports your soulmate in getting all that he's come here to earth for. Ultimately, when we water it all down, we're having a conversation around what it means to truly be a source of value in your man's life as a woman who requires emotional intimacy and closeness. When you express and expect a man to meet your emotional needs, you help him to fulfill his purpose in every aspect of life, girl. Oh my God, this shit is so good. I had so much fun recording this episode and giving you examples. One of the examples, I started talking about an old guy. I didn't really fully finish the example, but I really painted a beautiful enough picture so it all comes together. As usual, I suggest listening the whole entire way through. Oh, you're going to love this. I'm so jealous that you're getting to hear this for the first time. Okay, I love you. Enjoy. Right now, you're listening to Naked and Noisy, Manifestation Tools for the Professional Woman. I'm Natalie Hughes, your host and your coach in this series. In each episode, I'm giving you the tools that you need to create the life you've always dreamed of without the soul-crushing sacrifice that you were taught to endure. Whether you're ready to be treated like the industry leader that you are, you're ready to be drunk in love with your soulmate, or you're ready to wake up to a closet full of Jimmy Choo every morning, this is the podcast for you. Promiscuous men will never reach their full potential in life. The emotionally avoidant man will never reach his full potential in life. Now, I'm incredibly excited to get into this with you today. And before we get into it, I have to tell you a story of how this conversation even came to be. Okay? As you know, one of my main focuses right now is my soulmate relationship, allowing in the love of my life, future husband, whatever. So a part of that process, like we talked about in last week's episodes, has been forgiveness, releasing the past, clearing space. And because I've been doing my forgiveness work and I've been releasing the past and clearing space and having a certain nightmare, not a recurring dream, it was just one nightmare. A particular man was on my mind. And in this podcast, we refer to that man and that relationship as the incident. So the incident was on my mind, and this conversation happened a couple days ago, so I don't remember exactly. It's very interesting. 2.5? We're not even 2 minutes into this, but can I give you a 2.5 already? It's so interesting because when I care about things and when I feel emotionally connected to things, in astrology, I have my moon sign, which is our feelings and emotions, in my third house, which is that Gemini house, Mercurial house. It's the way that you communicate. It's the way that you think. It's the way that you learn. It's your early childhood education, siblings, cousins, early neighborhood and environment. It's a million and one different things, but mostly it's the way that you learn, right? So I'm somebody who has an excellent memory and I can learn anything in the world, but I have my moon on the third house. And so what that means is I can learn anything in the world and I can remember anything in the world, but only if I have an emotional connection to that thing. So the reason why that's funny and the reason why I'm giving you this 2.5 is because I'm going, the incident was on my mind the other day and I don't remember why. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember how the conversation went with myself. You know what I mean? And to me, that's just snaps and claps. Like, I love that because I don't remember. Because I didn't really have an emotional connection to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's hot. Okay, 2.5 over. So the incident was on my mind, and I don't remember the exact conversation, but I remember what came as a consequence of it, and that's what we're talking about today. So sometimes I understand it was like some sort of storyline that came up when I was thinking about the incident. And the storyline that came up was, that experience when you date a guy or you like someone or you have a relationship with someone, whatever, and you think that you're going to have like a future with them or you want to have a future with them, whatever, and you guys don't end up being together, and you kind of have that feeling of like, wow, like he's going to marry some other woman or person someday, or, what if he goes on to win the Nobel Prize or some shit like that? You know what I mean? Like, what if he goes on to do something incredibly amazing and wonderful and great, and I'm not a part of that because I'm not a part of his life, right? And I've had that experience. Well, I haven't had that experience personally. Stop. I'm a new woman. Do you see how I did that? I could have gone on right here, right now, in real time. I stopped myself. I could have gone on to make a series of jokes. They're coming to my mind, and I'm just letting them go in one ear and out the other. I could have made a series of jokes about how I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I'm not, because I forgive. I'm clearing space, bitch. So anyway, I'm not speaking from my own personal experience, but I know an old friend of mine years ago, she dealt with a guy and she was with him on and off, and then they like broke up, and then he married his next girlfriend. And it's like, what the fuck? You didn't want to marry me, but you marry your next girlfriend, right? So that's the storyline, right? The storyline is you're with the guy, you're emotionally invested in the guy, you're having dreams and plans and things that you would want to do with the guy, and then the relationship ends, and then he goes on to do something like marry his next fucking girlfriend, or he goes on to do something absolutely amazing with his fucking life. And I'm not just talking about a normal breakup, we grew apart, things are amicable, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking about the emotionally unavailable man who ran away from you and ran away from the connection and ghosted you and was just emotionally immature and irresponsible. That's the guy that we're talking about, right? And a lot of times that guy is also promiscuous, you know? And this is not really, we're not really having an episode where we're shaming promiscuity. I really don't give a damn, but I am going to tell you what it is and what it isn't. And that's just what we do here on the Naked and Noisy podcast. You know what I'm saying? So there's that storyline where it's like the relationship ends and the person goes on to do something amazing and wonderful with their life. And you just kind of feel that feeling of like, oh, like I missed out. And if you're somebody like me, then maybe you only kind of like think of that. Like imagine, like abusing your imagination, right? What if he went on to do this amazing thing? And I can't remember what I was thinking about with the incident, but I was just thinking about his future. And it was like almost following that storyline of missing out on a great guy, missing out on an amazing future, whatever. What if he goes on and has this amazing future without me? And maybe it means that I'm not good enough. I don't know. It was just a thought that came into my mind. And it like immediately, it's like I couldn't even finish inquiring or like perpetuating that old story, because the immediate thought that came to my mind was like, that man's not going anywhere in his career. That man's career has peaked. That man's career is going to do one of two things. It's either going to plateau or it is going to fucking plummet. That man's career is done. The glory days are over. I forgive. And I forgive. And I forgive. And the reason why that came to me, we don't have time to talk about the other reasons why that came to me, but the reason why that idea and thought came to me is not because I'm upset and bitter about the past and I wish him no good in his life, which, no, I really don't wish him any good in his life. I am neutral towards him at best. Anyway, it's not really that bitterness. It's just a really amazing observation. And so that observation turned into a whole conversation with me and the universe, the angels, and the ancestors about divine masculine energy, because that's what we've been talking about the past couple of, what, have we been talking about this for weeks now? The last couple of episodes, we're talking about divine masculine energy. We're talking about divine feminine energy. We're talking about love relationships. We're talking about the manifestation of your soulmate. We're talking about the purpose of your relationship. We're talking about meaning. So the thought comes into my mind, that man is not going to go on to win a Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know. I didn't, it wasn't even like when I was thinking about him, it wasn't like a specific thing. I don't feel envious of any. Okay, I have to be honest. And I'm still doing my forgiveness work. It's one of those situations where it's like, The idea of a woman marrying that man, like, I'm sorry. You can't see my face right now, so hopefully you can hear it in my tone. I'm so sorry, sister. Like, I'm sorry. That's the best I got for you, okay? So it didn't feel like one of those moments where it was like, it didn't feel emotionally charged. It felt almost like an observation. Like, my mind was like wondering, like, what will you do with your life now that I will absolutely never ever be in it again? Like, what would that look like for you? Will you go on to do amazing things? Will you transmute this fucked up energy that you're living in? And I was just like, well, no, he won't. He'll stay exactly where he is because that's what he does. He's a mediocre man living a mediocre life. But unfortunately for him, and a lot of men like him, his mediocre life looks like a great life. Ooh, this is so fucking good. Okay, we're still getting into it, okay? We're still getting into it. I'm painting the scene. There's a lot of men and a lot of human beings, but in particular, I'm feeling really strongly, this is like, we're talking about men right now. We're talking about divine masculine energy, right? There's a lot of men who are living a life in their zone of excellence. And I have to talk about the incident again, because God damn it, he is like the perfect example of this. I remember when I met him and I asked him about, what's your 5-year plan for your life? Because I'm a Capricorn moon and I have Venus in Aries in the 6th house. And I'm a long-term kind of girl. And I'm a life planning kind of woman. And I'm a big picture kind of person. So I want to know who you are. What are you working towards? What's your desire? What's on your mind? I ask him, what's your 5-year plan? Where do you plan to be? And he says, I don't really have one. I don't know. I'm just going to be here. I'm just feeling the vibe. And I think he said that for a lot of different reasons, some of them being intentionally misleading and manipulative. But the point is, the man didn't have a 5-year plan for his life. And that was how many years ago? About 5? Next question. He didn't have a 5-year plan for his life. He took the LSAT, got an average score, could have gone to an average law school, decided to get his PhD and get a job working at a university. Zone of excellence behavior, and I'm going to explain exactly why. There was nothing too challenging about that. He had in his astrology a Sagittarius moon. I have a Capricorn moon. Business, although some parts of it have been challenging for me, the second that I learned something about business, I'm really good at implementing it. It's very intuitive for me because that's the moon. Intuition, feelings, and Capricorn is business. It's a lot of different things, but we'll just say business. And Sagittarius, if we were going to give it one word, then it would be higher education. It could also be spirituality, which we talked about the fake woke ass spiritual Sagittarius rising man on the last podcast episode, right? So this guy was this Sagittarius moon guy who clearly excelled academically. Great, wonderful, amazing. Zone of excellence behavior. Your zone of excellence is the thing that you're good at, the thing that you're even great at, the thing that you're wonderful at. Your zone of genius, your full potential. Abraham Hicks' law of attraction would call it living on the leading edge of creation, taking your thoughts to places that they have never gone before. Zone of genius behavior is trailblazing behavior. Zone of genius behavior is leadership behavior. It's kind of very divine masculine, even though all of us, would be striving to live in our zone of genius in one way or another. But your zone of genius is where you lead. Your zone of genius, leading edge of creation, taking thoughts to places that they've never gone before. I was watching the month number 4, Who Wants It Anyway replay from the Next Level Mindset Mentorship Program, and I gave that example, so that's what's coming to my mind now. I am thinking about the Spotify Wrapped and how I believe it was a Black woman, an intern at Spotify, who came up with that idea. That's zone of genius. That's living on the leading edge of creation, taking thought to some place that thought has never gone before. We had never thought of Spotify Wrapped ever in life. And now I think Apple Music, I don't use Apple Music, but now I think Apple Music has a feature that's like, what's your Wrapped for today? And you could technically say that that's living on the leading edge of creation because you're taking thought someplace that it's never gone before, but that's really a zone of excellence behavior. Because it wasn't actually you getting into your zone of genius. It was you trying to compete with somebody else and not actually being original and boring. And, we don't even have time to get further into that. But I hope that I'm doing a good enough job expressing what I'm saying. Your zone of excellence is something that you're good at, something that makes sense for you. Your zone of excellence is like following the beaten path. Is that the right phrase? Following the path that's already been walked. That's zone of excellence behavior. Zone of excellence behavior is do the thing that everybody else told you you're going to do. You're going to have this job, and then you're going to go to school, and then you're going to have this internship, and then you're going to have this job, and then you're going to switch, and then you're going to have this job, and it's going to be better paying, and then you're going to work at that job for 2 years, and then you're going to switch, and then you're going to, you know what I'm saying? That's very zone of excellence. Zone of genius behavior is I'm about to do some shit that nobody has ever done before. Beautiful example, Beyonce. Beyonce, when she dropped Self-Titled, I believe it was Self-Titled. I'm like 97% sure that it was her Self-Titled album. Beyonce, the album, right? And she dropped that album randomly, no warning, on a Friday. At the time, everybody in the music industry is dropping on a Tuesday, I believe. And in her album, in the song Pretty Hurts, I believe, she says, "Soul not for sale." No, is that the album Lemonade? No, I think it's Self-Titled. I think it is Pretty Hurts. Bitch, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. The point is still the same. She says her soul is not for sale. And she says, I probably won't make no money off this. Oh, well, that's zone of genius behavior. Not because you're making a risk and assuming that you're not going to make money, but because when you're living on the leading edge of creation and you're doing something that nobody has ever fucking done before, there is no proof in the physical reality. There is nothing in the physical reality that's communicating to you that it's going to work. Welcome to leadership. There is nothing in the physical reality that's telling you that it's going to work. When you're living in your zone of genius, You're going to follow this step, and you're going to follow this step, and you're going to follow this step. I remember when I was pre-med, and what they were teaching you when I was pre-med, back when I was like in high school in my first year of college, what they were teaching you was you've got to shadow someone. You want to become a doctor. You find somebody who's a doctor. You find somebody who has the specialty that you want to specialize in, and you shadow them. Whether you're actually going into the office or you're having a conversation with them, you ask them what they did. You ask them what steps they took, and then you follow in their footsteps. That's zone of excellence behavior. It's not that it's void of challenge, but zone of excellence behavior is Beyonce when she was making pop albums. Are they considered pop albums? Zone of excellence behavior is Beyonce when she was making albums for the general public. When she was making albums that she knew a majority of people were going to vibe with. She knew a majority of people were going to like. You look at Beyonce's albums and how she has evolved over time. From I believe it was that moment in that album where she's saying, my soul is not for sale. What does that mean? How could your soul be for sale? How are you selling your soul if you create an album that's different than this? How are you selling your soul if you don't give us this album, if you don't deliver this? She's saying, my soul is not for sale. I probably won't make any money off of this. Oh, well. What does that mean? That means I have to give this to the world because this is a reflection of my soul. This is a reflection of my truth. And even if this does not perform commercially, that's the sale part, I still got to give this to you. Oh, well. My soul, who I am, the truth of me, what I feel called to express, what I want to put on this album, what I want to give to the world, I am not willing to sell this. I'm not willing to trade my soul, the truth of me, for money. I'm not willing to sacrifice my soul for commercial success. I'm going to give you where I am in my life, and you're going to fuck with it or you're not going to fuck with it. And I'm assuming that you probably won't fuck with it because there's no proof, because I'm doing something that nobody's ever done before. There's no proof that you're going to fuck with it, but I have to give this to you because this is my soul's expression. So if it doesn't make money and I'm prepared for it to fail, fuck it, we ball. That's what she's saying. That's zone of genius behavior. Welcome to leadership. And we're not just talking about divine masculine energy. And we're not just talking about men. We're talking about anything that you're doing in life. Zone of excellence behavior for me, myself, and I. I'm an amazing tarot reader. I have 20,000, 23,000, 30,000. I don't fucking know. I don't know how many people that I have on TikTok right now. And I deleted my YouTube channel, my previous YouTube channel, when it had just hit 22 or 23,000 subscribers. Because I was done doing tarot readings. If I wanted to live a life in my zone of genius, then I would get my tarot cards. I'm an excellent tarot reader. It's really zone of excellence behavior. I am an excellent tarot reader, incredibly accurate. I'm a wonderful psychic. Duh. Zone of excellence behavior would be me busting out some tarot cards and doing a pick a card reading about how does he feel about you. And I would get thousands of views easily. And I would get thousands of subscribers easily. And I would be commercially successful. And I would also be selling my soul. Not to the devil, even though, devil interpretation in tarot is not really like a big, evil demon type thing. It's unhealthy coping mechanism. So technically maybe, you know what I mean? Same thing. What I'm saying is tarot reading, astrology reading is my zone of excellence. Nobody can read a natal chart like I can read a natal chart. The people who have been quote unquote professionally trained and the great leaders in the astrology community, they're great, they're amazing, they're wonderful. If I showed up and showed out, the girls would be obliterated. It's like Beyonce. If Beyonce had committed to commercial success and was committed to making the records that she knew for sure, that the record companies knew for sure, if Beyonce wanted to play that game, then she'd be winning. It's zone of excellence behavior. It's not that you can't thrive in your zone of excellence, but it's that you can't create an emotionally fulfilled life in your zone of excellence. I can read the fuck out of some tarot cards. I'm very good at it. I can read the hell out of some energy. You could ask me about somebody that you're dealing with in your life. And how does this person feel about me? And I'm incredibly psychic and I'm incredibly intuitive. I don't have to pull cards. I can kind of really just sit and think about it. Sit and let the answers come to me. Sit and listen to you talk about the situation and what happened. And the messages come through. I'm incredibly good at it, incredibly accurate at it. If I wanted to build a following doing tarot readings, that I could absolutely do that, but that was zone of excellence behavior. That's not my zone of genius. That's not my zone of genius. Coaching, teaching, guiding, supporting, inspiring women to create emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven lives, that's my zone of genius. And it's the most terrifying thing in the fucking world. Doing tarot readings and building a following, it was easy. It was so fucking easy. It was the easiest thing that I've ever done in my life. But when you turn to your zone of genius, when you step into your fucking purpose, what if people don't give a fuck about what I have to say? What if nobody wants it? What if nobody can afford it? Nobody's buying. It's not working. My marketing's not good enough. I'm not good enough. The title of my courses aren't good enough. Nobody in my audience is buying from me. Nobody in my audience wants what I have to offer. Nobody in the fucking world wants what I have to offer. Nobody cares about what I have to offer. Nobody cares about what I have to say. People are ignoring my emails. People are ignoring my marketing. And that's like just the tip of the fucking iceberg. You want to live in your zone of genius. You gotta become best friends with your fucking fear. You've got to become best friends with your fucking fear. You might not fuck with the fact that I'm gonna unlist all of my tarot readings and only post about coaching shit. Might not immediately make any money off of this. Oh well. Because my soul is not for sale, because this is what God has put on my heart to give to the world, to share and to teach. This is what God has put on my heart to talk about. This is my anointing. This is my appointment. This is my assignment from God. So I'm going to do the thing that I feel that I was anointed and appointed and assigned to do. And I have to put myself out there and I have to take a risk. And there is no hardcore proof that this is going to work for me. There is no hardcore proof that the people will show up. There is no hardcore proof that the course sales will show up. There is no hardcore proof. Welcome to leadership. Welcome to your zone of genius. You get out there, and then your abandonment wounds and all of your fears and everything that you never dealt with, everything that you didn't even know was an issue, the fact that your dad abandoned you, you didn't even think that that was an issue. You didn't even really consider that experience to be abandonment. Turns out it was. It impacted you deeply. You didn't even know that was a fucking issue. But you don't have to deal with issues like that in your zone of excellence. You don't have to deal with issues like that in your zone of excellence. And your zone of excellence is not just in your career. Your zone of excellence is in your relationships. when I was having experiences where I was willing to entertain emotionally avoidant behavior in men, when I was having that experience where the guy wasn't showing up and I'm watching tarot readings and the tarot readings are saying that he has to deal with this issue and he has to deal with this and he has to deal with this, and my focus was on all of the things that he has to heal and all of the reasons why he is not showing up, and I wasn't looking at what was alive within me fully. That was zone of excellence behavior, even though it wasn't exactly excellent. I was looking at some stuff, I was focusing on some stuff, I was clearing some stuff, and I don't want to, like diminish my accomplishments because, yeah, I did move through so much. But oh, how things have drastically changed. Changed so fucking drastically that I'm on this podcast singing. Like, you commit to calling in your soulmate, you commit to holding that energy, you commit to holding that vibration, and oh my God, it turns out there are so many things that I was not aware of. Whoa! You want to have an amazing soulmate relationship? You want to step into your purpose with this person on planet Earth? You got to clear all this shit out. You got to look at all this. You got to handle all this. But you're not focusing on that. I wasn't aware of these issues when I was experiencing the incident. I wasn't putting myself in a position. Depends on what time in the relationship, but it doesn't matter. We're speaking generally. I wasn't putting myself in the position where I had to look at my fears and what was alive within me and what I needed to heal and what I needed to shift through. You want to have a zone of genius relationship? You want to have a healthy fucking relationship? You want to have the love of your life relationship? You're going to have to deal with some fear and some doubts and some other shit that was not triggering you while you were in your zone of excellence. So, okay, we've got a really good idea of what's my zone of excellence versus what's my zone of genius. Beyonce right now, in her career, in her artistry, she's in her zone of genius. You can see the evolution. You can see the progression. You can see her settling into herself. She's doing what the fuck she wants to do. She is giving what's on her heart to give. She is expressing her soul. I don't care. A lot of people I don't know if it's a lot of people, but just I've seen things online, on Twitter, among certain members, fans, people in the beehive. Why isn't she doing more promotion? Why isn't she doing this and this and this? And then other people are like, you must be new here. She says she doesn't give a fuck. She's going to show up and she's going to give what she wants to give when she wants to give it. You're not going to rush that woman. You're not going to rush that woman to release visuals. You're not going to rush that woman to release a live album. You're not going to rush that woman to do a goddamn thing that woman doesn't want to fucking do. Because she has made it abundantly clear that she gives a fuck about her artistry. She doesn't give a fuck about the numbers. And maybe, she does in some ways and sometimes, but that's not her number one goal. That's not what she's striving for. Versus years ago in the past, in the beginning of her career, she's doing more interviews. She's doing X, Y, and Z different thing. She's performing at Best Buy. I don't know, Her priorities changed. The way that she moves is different. Because her priority is more in alignment with her zone of genius. That's fulfillment. Your zone of genius is your fulfillment. It's the most terrifying thing in the fucking world, but that's your fulfillment, and your desire for fulfillment is stronger than your desire to avoid your fucking fear. I could be one of the most successful tarot reading astrologists of all fucking time, and I would hate it. I stopped making choices and decisions based on what I knew for sure was going to make me money. And I started making choices and decisions based on what I knew for sure was going to help me sleep at night. I can't have a life experience where I'm doing tarot readings. I can't do it. I don't like it anymore. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean that you like it, doesn't mean that you love it, doesn't mean that it lights you up. At some point in my life it did, and I outgrew it. I give myself tarot readings, of course, but not really for the public like that. If it lit me up to do it, then I would. It doesn't right now, so it's not happening. But creating my courses, creating my trainings, I got 3 or 4 fucking trainings, presentations that I have lined up that I've got to record to put into 3 different courses, got a workbook to work on, got all of these different things. And I'm having the time of my life because I'm teaching and I'm sharing. So regardless of whether or not I meet my financial goals today, tomorrow, this month, next month, I'm still going to be doing this work. Because there's nothing else in the world that I would rather be doing. There's no amount of money that would persuade me to do something other than this, because my soul is not for sale. This work is my purpose. This work gives me meaning. I have no choice but to write it out, hold the expectation, hold the vision of meeting my financial goals, because I'm going to be doing this shit anyway. I'm not doing anything other than this. That's zone of genius. That's fulfillment. There's nothing that fulfills me more than helping and supporting women in freeing themselves from the pain of their past, becoming more empowered, being treated better and better in their lives, getting new jobs, breaking out into the industries of their desire, getting out of toxic work environments. I experience a high when my people get out of an unhealthy living situation, when they get out of an unhealthy work environment, when they get that job in their industry, when they go after the thing, when they finally receive their desires. Oh my God, there's nothing else like it on planet Earth. So even though I have to deal with my abandonment wounds, and I got to do breath work, and I got to do EFT, and I got to look at the fact that I was betrayed so many times by human beings, that a part of me doesn't want to be successful doing this, and a part of me doesn't want to share my heart, and a part of me doesn't want to receive as many of the sales as I desire in my heart, because I'm afraid that the human beings of the world will turn on me and attack me, because that has happened so many fucking times in my goddamn life. I have to look at that shit. I don't have to. There's no gun to my head. I choose to look at that shit. Because there's nothing else that I would rather do than this. And I've got work to do. I've got shit to do. I've got lives to change. I have people to support. I have people to teach. I have people to heal. I have energy to shift. There's so much shit to be done. To say that I haven't even gotten started in my business, it's an understatement. And it's crazy, because I've already created so many things of such tremendous fucking value. It's crazy. I'm so excited for the rest of my life. This is my zone of genius, even though it terrifies the shit out of me. I face my fears every single day. I don't run. I live in my zone of genius. The man from the incident cannot fucking relate. He's not a leader. He will never live in his zone of genius, because what does he do? He runs. He runs from his feelings. He runs from his emotions. He runs from emotional responsibility. He runs from accountability. He runs away. He will never reach his zone of genius. He will never reach his full potential. And the problem is that he has a PhD. That's not the real problem, but that's the problem. The problem is that there's a lot of men who are living in their zone of genius. If I had an experience where I continued to do tarot readings and I got back on TikTok and I grew my following to hundreds of thousands and I started uploading onto YouTube and I grew that following to hundreds of thousands and I was making money doing tarot reading, which sounds absolutely fucking exhausting. I hate taking myself to this place in my imagination. My energy is like, If I had that experience, then people would look at me and they would say, she is so successful. She is making so much money. Oh my God. I hate that I was mean to her in high school. She's so successful. People would feel like that's such incredible success. I know that there are some people who do. There are some people who think that having thousands of people following you is a huge marker of success. And I'm not saying that it's not at all. But I'm saying I learned the difference between having a whole bunch of people following me who don't give a fuck about anything. Everybody can't sit with me. Everybody can't be in my community. I don't want numbers more than I want value. I don't want numbers more than I want value. You want to be in my community? You want to be subscribed to my shit? I need a bitch that's all in. Do you hear me, Miranda? I need a bitch that's all in. You want to be in my clique? You want to be in my community? You're a woman who's committed to creating an emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven life, period, point blank. I don't give a fuck if there's only 2 subscribers. We have work to do. My values changed. Zone of genius behavior is different. And it's not that I don't have the desire to grow and expand my following and my platform, but it's that I have the desire to do it with intention. And as I grow and expand my platform and I do so with intention, I've got my own stuff to clear out, my own human stuff, my own fears of not being good enough stuff, my own Jeremiah chapter 1. Almighty God, I can't do this. God's like, yes, you can. That is my summary of the scripture. Thank you. I got my own shit to move through. So I give myself time and I give myself patience, regardless, still zone of genius behavior. There's a lot of men who are walking around in their zone of excellence. And because they have the degree, because they have the job, because they have the income, because they have the accolades, because they have the physical proof that they are somebody, and other people will look at them. Oh my God, greatest example of all time. I did cut myself off there. Best example of this. You know, when little kids, they come to you, they're so excited. They're like, watch this. And then they like jump in the air. And, you know, personally me, I get excited because I love children and that's just that on that. But, you know, they do a little jump in the air and it's a mediocre jump in the air, but they're doing a jump in the air for you because they want you to clap for them and, you know, tell them that they are the center of your universe, and they are. And so you're like, if you're like me, you're like, oh my God, that was the greatest jump in the air that I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen a kid jump that high. Oh my God, that was amazing. How did you do that? Show me again, right? You had that experience. And it's adorable when they're 5-year-olds. And it's not adorable when they're 35-year-olds. Are you hearing me, Miranda? There's a lot of men in the world whose lives are created on that entire storyline. Look at this. Look at what I can do. I got the job that I didn't want to get because it means that I'm good enough. Because it means that I deserve respect. I did all of these things that other people are going to think are so cool, so awesome, so amazing. They're going to think I'm a total and complete boss. And it's excellent. It's zone of excellence behavior. It's great, it's wonderful, it's amazing. I'm not actually trying to diminish it. I don't actually think that it's a bad thing. I don't think that it's not worthy of praise. I don't think that it's unworthy of love. But it's not your highest fucking potential. And it's like you're having a life experience where you're leaving money on the table. You might look successful. If I could have 20,000 people subscribed to me doing tarot readings, I could have 200,000 people subscribed to my fucking podcast. Zone of excellence looks great, but your zone of genius is next fucking level. Genres are a funny thing, aren't they? That Beyonce Virgo shit. Beyonce in her zone of excellence. Beyonce in her commercial era. If she had stayed in her zone of excellence, we would never have received those petty ones can't fuck with me. Why? Because I'm a clever girl. We got an album that's a fuck you, big middle fingers up to the history of racism in America, racism in country music, discrimination at the Grammys, and all of the different, like, I want to call it like genre biases. I wasn't planning on discussing Beyonce at all. So, you know, this is me putting the thoughts together and speaking it. When Beyonce came out with Texas Hold'em, and fans were requesting it on the radio show, and the radio were saying, this is a country station, we're not playing Beyonce. Click. And the fans were like, I think the fuck you are. When Beyonce puts out music and it's automatically labeled as R&B, or Beyonce puts out music and it's automatically labeled as pop or whatever, we're seeing her changing and redefining what does it mean to shift between genres. What the fuck is a genre? You have a song. Yaya is an excellent song because it includes multiple genres in one fucking song. Zone of genius shit, taking thought to places that thought has never gone before. Thank you, Beyonce, for not being willing to live in your zone of excellence, even though you were already successful, even though things were looking good. What is Beyonce doing? She is creating a legacy. Legacy is so much more than money and abundance. She's living in her purpose. She's challenging the status quo. She's shaking shit up. that Beyonce Virgo shit. What is Virgo in astrology? Virgo is mercurial. Virgo is studious. Virgo is meticulous. Virgo pays attention to detail. That Beyonce Virgo shit, that means I did my research. And have a fun time trying to figure this out. Have a fun time trying to label this. Before she released the album, she made a post. She said, this isn't a country album. This is a Beyonce album. She said, I am the genre bitch. Like, what? Who does that? Nobody. Because she's living in her zone of fucking genius. Taking thought to places that it has never gone before. She is living on the leading edge of creation. You have to respect it, regardless of whether or not you like the artistry, regardless of whether or not it's your cup of tea. You've got to respect her for doing what the fuck she's doing, because she's doing it. You know what I'm saying? She's living it. She is leading by example, and it's a beautiful example, and I'm obviously one of her greatest fans, so, you know. That zone of genius behavior. She hadn't taken that risk. If she hadn't released self-titled, have the entire fucking music industry, oh, we all release on Fridays now. Why is that? Welcome to leadership. She had an experience. I probably won't make any money off this. Now here we are. Almost, a decade later? I don't think, maybe a decade later? I think a decade later. I think over a decade later. Everybody's releasing on Fridays. Or even if they're not releasing on a Friday and it's not happening on a Tuesday, why is that? Because she was willing to take action, and she was willing to move even with her fear. She was willing to move even with her doubt. She was willing to take a chance. That's leadership. That's zone of genius behavior. The guy, the incident, we're just about done talking about him for the remainder of this episode. He doesn't know anything about that lifestyle. He will never reach his full potential. A promiscuous man, the emotionally avoidant man in a relationship, will never reach his full potential. Natalie, why is that? Why is that? Because what I've noticed, hold on, I have to look up a word. Yes, perfect, okay. What I've noticed and observed, and what I'm coming to understand more and more, is that a lot of men have a habit of compartmentalizing their different areas of life. And divine masculine energy plans things out. So, like, lovely, that mental energy, definitely something that divine masculine energy is going to excel at. So that's lovely. But when they have that experience where they're compartmentalizing things, meaning this is how I act in my career, this is how I act in my relationships, this is how I act in my family, this is how I act in my friendships, and they're all different. And these things do not touch. Unfortunately, they're wrong. They are wrong. They're incorrect. You do not have an experience as a human being, but specifically we're talking about men. You don't have an experience as a man where you go after everything in your career. You get everything that you want in your career, and you're emotionally avoidant in your relationships. You don't have that. And zone of excellence behavior is very tricky. It is one hell of a drug. Great example. Ooh, great example. A great example is Shaq. Basketball player. I think he was really good. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. But I've seen tweets about him where he's talked about the things he didn't do for his family, the things he didn't do in his marriage. I've got a big ass mansion and I'm all alone in it. And of course, we know You don't show up for your people. They don't show up for you. Majority of, well, I'm not going to say majority of men, but a majority, and this is not an official statistic, just something that I've seen multiple times. Like people talking about it. What I've seen is men in retirement homes dying alone because they have no one. Because they have no one. Because of how they behaved, because of how they didn't show up. Dying alone. So it's a very similar experience, and that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that Shaq, even with the businesses, even with the basketball, even with the acting that he has done, because of the way that he showed up in his relationship with his wife, because of the way that he showed up in his family, listen to me when I tell you this, he did not make, has never made as much money, has never experienced as much success as he could possibly experience in his life. When men don't show up in their relationships, when men are emotionally avoidant, they do not live in their zone of genius. They do not reach their full potential. And I hope that you're starting to make the connection already. The reason is because you're running away from your feelings. That is not the way of the zone of genius. Zone of genius is emotional fulfillment. Emotional fulfillment is not every day it's rainbows and sunshine. Every day is a happy day in your zone of genius. No. Some days it's a fucking storm. Some days it's a fucking storm. Have you ever been to Oklahoma? I'd recommend it. I love Oklahoma. You go to Oklahoma, those thunderstorms are scary, bitch. Those thunderstorms are scary. And I am not somebody that's like, ooh, lightning, I'm scared. No, I went to Oklahoma. Stayed in Oklahoma City, stayed in Tulsa. Multiple times, woke up in the middle of the night. Like, this shit is kind of scary. It is scary out there. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay. It's fucking scary. Sometimes it's a terrifying storm in the middle of the night. Zone of Genius is terrifying, so scary. And it's also the most rewarding thing you'll ever experience in your life. It's emotions. Emotions move on a spectrum, right? So when you're emotionally avoidant, when you're emotionally numb, you don't get to be selective. You don't get to be selective. You don't get to be selective around what emotions you numb yourself to and what emotions you don't numb yourself to. You run away from your fear. You numb yourself out so you don't experience the negative emotions. And as you numb yourself out from your pain, you numb yourself out from your pleasure. You do. You do. I promise you do. I swear to God that you do. I'm going to give you an example right now after I finish explaining this, but I promise. You numb yourself out from the pain and you numb yourself out from the pleasure. You don't live a life where you run away from your fear and you run away from your doubt and you run away from your insecurity. And then you go and experience the highest amounts of joy and love and happiness possible. You don't have that experience. That's not how this shit works. That's not how emotions work. That's not how feelings work. You numb yourself out from the pain. You numb yourself out from the worst emotions possible. Then you numb yourself out from the best emotions possible. What does that leave you with? Just the fucking middle part? You're just really at neutral? You're a fucking zombie? You're walking around a fucking zombie? And the best feelings that you feel are when you consume alcohol or when you do drugs. Are we getting too deep? Are we getting too deep? And the best feeling that you feel is when you have casual sexual relations. That's the best feeling that you feel. That is sad. Because you're at neutral. Can I say that? Can I say that men who are living in their zone of excellence aren't having good sex? Can I say that? Can I tell you that? And if you're somebody who is a promiscuous person who runs away from emotional intimacy, doesn't build connection with people, uses sex to try to establish cheap, fake intimacy, rush into sex so that it looks like you're closer than you actually are, you're not having the best sex of your life. You're not experiencing the most pleasure that you could ever experience. I know this. I know it. I know it because I know it, and I know it from experience, and I'm going to tell you about my experience. My vagina. My vagina is a lovely place. And I remember years ago, 5 years ago? This was 2019, maybe 2020. Because it was right, it doesn't matter, between 2019 and 2020. I had a friend at the time who was a psychic tarot reader. And I was trying to orgasm. Not just, oh goodness. I was trying to have a vaginal orgasm. I was trying to have an orgasm through my vagina instead of through something else. I had never had a vaginal orgasm before, and I felt like my cooter cat was broken. I thought my vagina was broken. Not like it was broken like something happened to me. Well, I mean, I was traumatized, so something did happen to me. But no, it wasn't like that. I just felt like, can I not have a vaginal orgasm? Like, this sucks. I really wanted to have a vaginal orgasm. So I got a reading from my friend at the time, and she says, no, yes, your vagina works. You can have a vaginal orgasm. And that was great. It was a mindset shift for me, a limiting belief that was released, right? Now, what happened was amazing. I'm reminiscing, hold on. The great, amazing, wonderful thing that happened was at the same time as I'm trying to achieve this vaginal orgasm for the first time, I'm healing my childhood stuff. And I'm healing and I'm crying, which at the time, 2019, 2020, specifically, because a lot of this was happening in my car. 2020, that was like my routine. Crying in my car was my routine because I couldn't cry in my house because my mother would hear me. And then she would start freaking out. So I'd go in my car, and this was when I really started looking at my childhood experience. I'm learning about childhood development and developmental psychology, and I'm just learning how to fucking heal myself. So memories that I had suppressed were coming up, things that I've forgotten. I'm seeing things in a new way. I'm looking at pain, and up until that time, I was not somebody who cried. Like, of course, there were times when I cried, like, 2 years prior. I told you guys about that in like the last episode in 2018 when I ended the thing with the guy and then I cried, and that was the first time I ever expressed feelings to a guy that I liked. So it's like there were moments when I had cried, but at that time, that was when I was really like learning how to allow myself to cry. When I would feel emotions and when tears would start coming up in my body, I would stop myself. I would tense my body and I would stop myself so that I didn't cry. So it was in 2020 that I'm healing from the past and I'm learning how to allow myself to cry and how to allow myself to release and how to allow myself to feel emotions. And as I allow myself to feel my pain, glory be to God, I unlock a whole new world, a whole new level of pleasure in my vagina. I have a vaginal orgasm. And the first time, it was good. It was good in a way where I was like, I think I just had an orgasm. Did I just have an... I think that was an orgasm. It was very nice. And I'm like, okay, there's improvement. So I'm healing. And I'm figuring out how to have this vaginal orgasm. And I'm getting it. And then I really get it. And we can't get too explicit here because I'd like to keep some privacy about myself. But I really have a vaginal orgasm. And if you were following me when I was traveling across the country, I was talking about it a lot. I was very proud. I was very proud of my vagina and the orgasms that I was having. And then, again, glory be to God. Because you did that. You create beautiful. Masterpiece. Amazingness. As I continue to heal and I continue to shift, there's more. There's more. What can't this thing do? I remember, and oh my God, if you've been following me for years, then you remember this, and you have to comment down below if some way, somehow, well, no, there's a lot of you who have been following me since those times, but I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I was traveling. This is 2020. And I had an orgasm that was so good that I triggered my vagus nerve. And I literally almost passed out. And I remember I went live, not immediately after this happened, but like later on in the night. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to call 911. And when I call 911 and they say, what's your emergency? I'm going to have to say, I had an orgasm so hard that I think I'm about to pass out now. And I need help. Oh my God, good times. And it still got better. Still got better. I know. And we can't spend the rest of this time talking about the wonders of the vagina. It's really great and amazing. The point is, my capacity to experience pleasure just keeps on increasing. Because I also keep increasing my willingness, my capacity to experience and feel pain. I develop greater intimacy with myself. So the promiscuous guy, the emotionally avoidant guy, he's not avoiding you, he's avoiding himself. Avoiding the fear of rejection, avoiding the doubt, avoiding the insecurity, avoiding the pain. That's an experience that you have within you. It's not just something that only impacts them in their relationships. It's not just something that only impacts them with their family. It's not just something that only impacts them when they think about women, even though they could be very misinformed and think that it is, but it's not. It's not. It's not. And I got a great example for you. Drake. That was my best Soulja Boy impression. Drake. Drake is a perfect example of this. A man living in his zone of excellence. Doing amazing. Or so it appears. Question mark. Doesn't appear amazing to me. I do listen to some Drake songs because they give me a very specific nostalgic feeling that I need for my own energetic purposes. And still, that's a man in his zone of excellence right there. And you have probably seen the criticism online. Where's the artistic growth and expansion? The albums are falling short. What's happening? You're not being challenged, brother. You're not accepting challenges in your relationship. The man, the promiscuous guy, the emotionally avoidant guy. You like low-hanging fruit. You like ease. You like convenience. You like ease and you like convenience in your women. You like ease and you like convenience in your women. And you run away from emotional intimacy. You like low-hanging fruit. You think that the man who prefers low-hanging fruit, the man who would rather have this okay, mediocre peach because he can reach out and grab it instead of going and getting the ladder and climbing a couple fucking steps to get this big, fat ass, juicy peach. And I'm not really talking about women. It really was just a metaphor, but I don't really care either way. The point is, you think the man who's not going to go and get a ladder and climb a couple steps, you think the man that runs away from difficulty, you think that man is living in his zone of genius? I know what the fuck it takes to live in your zone of genius. I know what it takes to go after your full potential in life. You don't want to go get a ladder? You don't want to face some fear? You don't want to look at some insecurity? You don't want to look at some doubt? And you think you're living in your purpose? You think you're reaching your full potential? You're kidding yourself. This man, Drake, living in the zone of genius. Not emotionally involved, not emotionally evolved. Not emotionally showing up as a parent. One of the greatest rappers of all time, best to ever do it, breaking all the records, whatever, but is given the opportunity to rap his ass off. He does not accept it because he cannot accept it, because he was not ready for that, because he doesn't live a life where he challenges himself to get better. What is it? I don't know the phrase. You sharpen iron with iron. Is that the phrase? Oh my God. Did I get that right? Is that the phrase? Iron sharpens iron? Is that the phrase? Because I'm seeing a sword in my mind. I don't really know the phrase. I don't really know the phrase. But I understand. I understand the main point. And the main point is this. You surround yourself with yes men. You surround yourself with yes women because they're easier to deal with. Women who don't care if you lie. Women who don't care if you text them back. Women who don't care if you show up or not. Women who don't care if you apologize. Women who don't give a fuck. Women who just want to be chose. Women who just want to be around. I'm not shaming those women. I don't give a fuck about what you do or why you do it. But you know where I stand on the issue because I've been talking about it for the past fucking hour. You know what I'm saying? You surround yourself with yes men who don't give you open and honest feedback. He doesn't have a friend. Drake doesn't have a fucking friend. Because if he had a friend, somebody would have said, you know what? Give him about 24 hours before you drop that shit. And let's look over the lyrics together as a community. And I've got some notes. That's what a friend would have done. That's what somebody who was willing to challenge you would have done. That's what a real person would have done. That's what, if you had a woman who loved you, that's what that woman would have done. Maybe this isn't the best look. Maybe we can come up with something a little bit different. That you don't have that. Because you're living in your zone of excellence. You're not living in your zone of genius. You run away from intimacy. You run away from conflict. Conflict is just an opportunity to experience intimacy. The guy who runs away in the relationship does not live in his zone of genius. Divine masculine energy has to be given the opportunity to rise to the occasion. Divine masculine energy, for a man to reach his full potential, he has to have people around him that are willing to actually challenge him and who are not willing to allow him to sit in his zone of excellence, because it's one hell of a fucking drug and it will kill you. Kendrick Lamar dropped those fucking songs. And oh, what happened? This song just rose to the top. Got the, and I'm making this up, it was something like this. Broke the record for the most amount of streams in a day, dethroning Drake's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us beats this record. Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, already gold, sold 500,000 units in the United States. I don't know exactly what it is. But the non-fucking stop, back to back to back to back. What a terrible way to lose. Terrible fucking way to lose. You never stood a chance. Why did he never stand a fucking chance? Because it's a man who lives in his zone of genius. It's a man who's emotionally avoidant. It's a man who doesn't handle his shit. He could not come back. He didn't have a rebuttal to the argument, you don't take care of your kids, you don't take care of your son, you're a deadbeat dad. He didn't have a rebuttal other than, I lied, I made that up, I planted that, gotcha. He didn't have a rebuttal because he doesn't. He didn't have a rebuttal because he was attacked with the truth, and he doesn't deal with the truth, and he didn't even deal with the truth enough to be able to transmute that energy. It's very sad. Because Drake is a Scorpio, and I don't know what other placements he has. I know he has like a Cancer moon or something. I don't know if he has other Scorpio energy. But Scorpio is the phoenix. Scorpio is transmitting energy. Scorpio is like, yes, you have Libra on the cusp of the 12th, which is like the house of undoing. So they deal with a lot of like backstabbing and all of that stuff. But you're the fucking phoenix. Nothing is able to kill you. You burn me in the fire. Surprise! I am born out of the ashes. You can't kill me. I am death. I am transformation. Every ending is a new beginning. But you run away from your emotions. You run away from intimacy with yourself. You're fighting against who you are. You don't know how to transmute shame. You don't know how to transmute guilt. You're defenseless against the shit, and you're fucking dead. Done for. Lost. Worst way possible. Your zone of genius is one hell of a drug, and it will fucking kill you. Especially with where we're moving as a society and a culture. We're not going to have an experience 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now where emotionally avoidant men are able to thrive and be respected. And I was planning on talking about this at a different time, so I'm going to wrap that thought up really quickly. We're about to have an experience where if you don't have a wife, if you don't have a partner, if you're not committed, and it's not, oh my God, go find a woman to marry you right now, or else you're not going to be successful. It's not about that. If women don't trust you, if you don't have family, if you don't have community, if you don't have roots, if you don't have genuine, authentic connection, you're not going to be able to succeed. The hot, sexy, old, eligible bachelor, that's fucking dying. You're going to start being called the loser that you are. Yikes. So, do divine masculine energy. Do men a favor. And don't be low-hanging fruit. And I'm not saying don't be promiscuous, don't be easy, do whatever the fuck you want to do. If I met somebody and the vibe was really right, I don't know if I would have sex with someone on the first night. I don't know if I would do that. But also, never say never. It really depends on my mood. But also, I probably would never do that. I don't know. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you have to be something that's going to help and support a man in living in his zone of genius instead of enabling that stupid zone of excellence bullshit. Because a lot of men are selling their soul for their zone of excellence, and their communities aren't getting served, and the world isn't getting served when they're doing that. The world isn't being served by emotionally avoidant men. Their families aren't being served when they're emotionally avoidant men. You don't have that experience. Okay, really great example. The guy who works in corporate but hates his wife and kids at home. He wants to work all the time and he never wants to be home because he's avoiding his wife and his kids. He avoids that emotional responsibility. That guy might look successful. He might look like he's doing great things. But that man does not have what? What doesn't he have, Miranda? He doesn't have integrity. He doesn't have integrity. That's a man. The man who allows himself to stay in a family situation that doesn't make him happy. The man who allows himself to stay in a situation that does not fulfill him. The man who allows himself to stay in a situation where he is miserable. You mean to tell me you truly, honestly, genuinely think that that's the man that's going to be loyal to your company, your corporation, your industry, this project? No, he's here as long as it's convenient for him to be here. He's here as long as he's getting enough to be here. And the second that it would suit him to betray you, the company, the industry, the project, the whatever, he's gonna back up and go. He's gonna leave. He's gonna abandon ship because that's what he is. That's who he is. He's an abandoner. He's a runner. That's who he is. That's what he does. So no, you can't rely on that man. And the man who's willing to be unsatisfied is not the man who is going to come up with the next great idea for your company or your industry either. Well, because he's comfortable and coming up with the next great idea. He might get a great idea that comes into his mind, and then he thinks about, the work that he's going to have to do to execute the idea, and then he comes up against that one roadblock in his mind. Oh, well, I would have to get such and such to sign off on that, and he never signs off on anything, so I'm not even going to mention it. He is leaving money on the table. That man only likes low-hanging fruit. He's willing to suffer. He's willing to be uncomfortable. You want your company to be the best company in your industry. You don't want men who, they're willing to be a walking zombie. They're willing to keep up appearances, but to actually be fulfilled in their work, that's too much work. No thanks. I'll pass. You don't want that man in your company. You don't want that man at your job. You don't want that man working for you. You don't want that man anywhere around you. And it's very interesting because living in that zone of excellence, having so many people around you who are so much more committed to what looks good than they're actually committed to your well-being, that they'll say whatever they need to say and they'll agree with whatever they need to agree with so that they can support you in maintaining the status quo. Those people are not your people. Those people are your poison. And you, Miranda, as the divine feminine, what is your job? Who are you and how do you show up? And what do you expect out of men? And I have probably said this for every single episode. Well, like of the previous episodes. Having an expectation of men isn't really, it's not something that you express directly. I expect you to live in your zone of genius or else. No, it's an expectation. What do you expect in your mind? What do you expect in your energy? What do you expect in your assumptions? What do you expect in your imagination out of men? Excuse me, whether you know the guy, know who your soulmate is or you don't, you're manifesting the love of your life. What do you expect of him? What do you expect of his character? What do you expect of his behavior? Who do you expect him to be? Is he living in a zone of genius? Or is he living in a zone of excellence? And which man, zone of excellence man, zone of genius man, which man is going to help you live an emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven life? Which man is going to give you really good sex? It's not the man living in a zone of excellence. I'll tell you that much. Don't care how good it is. It's not as good as it could be. And a bitch like me, and if you're a bitch like me, which I think you are, Miranda, bitches like us, we want it to be as good as it can get. Bitches like us, leading edge of creation bitches. Leading edge of creation ladies. Zone of genius ladies. The better it gets, ladies. And an earth-shattering, soul-transcending, epiphany attracting orgasms. Plain and simple. You're not getting that from a zone of excellence guy. So, I'm not even 110% sure Okay, I know where I want this to go, and it's going to go so perfectly when I embed it in Module 5 of the Love After Loss course. There's a couple of points here. Number one, you can forgive and release the emotionally avoidant guy who didn't show up, who ghosted you, who was more committed and into meaningless sex. You can forgive and release him because he's never living up to his full potential. And I don't know if that makes you feel better, but it makes me feel better. It makes me feel a hell of a lot better. Like, I love that. Karma is my best friend. Karma is a god. Karma is a breeze in my hair on the weekend. Karma is a relaxing thought. That is a relaxing thought. It is. It is. And I forgive. I forgive, and it's that much easier for me to forgive, knowing the kind of man that you are and the kind of life that you will most likely go on to lead. And that's just me. And that's just me. And God is still working on me, and I'm still forgiving in deeper and deeper levels. But, you know, we're here. I forgive. I release. Thank you. And also, it's relevant and it's important to know and it's important to understand because everything is connected. Everything is connected. So when that man comes into your life, you are a blessing. Ooh, this is one of my favorite jokes right now. Well, I haven't really told it recently, but it was one of my favorite jokes when I was telling it, which was like a couple days ago. When I think about this guy, the soulmate, the love of my life, who I'm allowing into my life, I don't remember exactly how this came about. But I was just thinking to myself, and we'll talk more about this inside of the Love After Loss course. But I was thinking to myself, you're going to come into my life and your income, your business, your salary, your money is going to fucking quadruple. There's so much abundance that's going to pour into your life when you come into my life. And so I'm thinking that, and the phrase in my mind, and maybe I've told this joke before, it doesn't fucking matter. The phrase that comes into my mind, well, not joke, like a story, it doesn't matter. The phrase that comes into my mind is like, or your money back. If you come into my life and your income does not quadruple, I will contact Father Time himself. I will have him turn back the hands of time. I will contact the men in black. I will have them go to you. They will wipe me from your memory. You come into my life, you show up, and your income quadruples, or your money, your time, your energy, your effort back. I'm sorry, it's like the funniest, it's the funniest thing ever in my life, okay? So, your money back. There's a money back guarantee, basically. No, I think that's really funny. I think that's like some of the funniest shit I've ever said. But what's my point? My point is that I'm a valuable woman. The point is that you're a valuable woman. And I'm not a valuable woman because of all the things that I know, even though I am a valuable woman because of the things that I know, right? Even though I am a valuable woman because of my energy, the energy that I bring. Yes, but that's not even the value that we're talking about. I'm a valuable woman because I'm not low-hanging fruit. I'm a valuable woman because I require more. And the man who shows up for the zone of genius relationship, soulmate connection with me is a man who is on his way to zone of genius levels of success, wealth, and abundance, because that's the kind of man that he is. There's integrity there. This is the kind of person that I am in every single aspect of my life, whether it's my podcast, my business, my marketing, my personal relationships, my friendships, my relationships with my family. I am the same version of me, no matter what room I am in, no matter who I am interacting with. Of course, different people get different, versions of the same person. The conversation that I would have with a toddler is not the conversation that I've just had with you over the past hour and 30 minutes, Miranda. But still, I'm still the same person. My integrity remains the same. So I get to have zone of genius connections. I get to have a zone of genius life in everything, because this is who I am. This is how I live. That's what it means to have an emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven life. You don't have an emotionally fulfilled, purpose-driven life as a human being, as a man, if you're not showing up and getting that intimacy and closeness and addressing that shit in your relationships. You're not getting it. Doesn't matter how much you show up in your career. Doesn't matter how much you strive. Doesn't matter how much work you put in. Doesn't matter how much shit you do. You will never get as much as you could as long as you're neglecting your emotional responsibilities, as long as you're neglecting your relationships. You won't do it. Because you're still emotionally numb. You're still emotionally avoidant. There is a cap on the amount of happiness you will allow yourself to experience in any aspect of life. There is a cap on the amount of emotional fulfillment you will allow yourself to experience in any aspect of life. You cannot be numb in your relationships and feel all of the great, amazing feelings in your career. That's not how it works. So now we're having a conversation about your purpose, Miranda. Your purpose in the relationship, your purpose in the connection. It's 1,000,001 different things. This is one of those. You are tremendous value when you're an emotionally available woman. You are of tremendous value when you're a woman who's willing to have the difficult conversations. You are of tremendous value when you're a woman who knows how to identify and communicate how she feels and what she needs. You are of tremendous value when you are an emotionally available woman. Emotionally unavailable women, they're not sharpening the iron. They're not challenging it. They're not supporting it in moving into the zone of genius. Zone of genius is emotionally open, emotionally available, emotionally expressive, willing to weather the storm. You show up in a man's life. You show up energetically. If you don't know who that man is, you show up energetically. Being that woman who's all in, being the woman willing to have the difficult conversations. And I have to say this. Oh, I have to say this. Being the woman willing to have the difficult conversations and being the woman who goes, I showed up. I tried to talk to him about it, but he didn't. No, it's not the same. It's not the same. I know women who will, and I was this, women who have had the experience where it's like, well, I tried to talk to him about this and I brought this up. But at the very beginning of the relationship, you didn't want to have the what are we conversation. You didn't want to have the conversation about what are our expectations. You didn't want to have the conversation about I'm dating for marriage. You didn't want to have the conversation, oh, but it's too early. Oh, but it's too soon. That's not the iron that sharpens iron. And I hope and I pray that I'm using that phrase correctly, or that's a real phrase. And if it's not a real phrase, then pretend it is, because it sounds really good. Is that me? Am I a son of genius? I'm hilarious. That's not the iron that sharpens iron, Miranda. When you're avoiding that intimacy, when you're avoiding talking about it, when you're avoiding stating your intentions, when you're avoiding being upfront, when you're avoiding being honest, when you're avoiding communicating what you need, when you're avoiding communicating what you feel, you spend more time talking with your homegirls, your besties, about the relationship and what did this mean, and when he said this and I said this, what do you think he meant when he said this, instead of asking him what he meant when he said that? That's emotional avoidance. Zone of excellence behavior. So I suggest and I invite you to sit with yourself and ask yourself that question. How have I been being emotionally avoidant in my relationships? How have I not been showing up in my zone of genius energy in relationships? How have I not been showing up ready, willing, and eager to be all in, ready, willing, and eager to be vulnerable and open and expressive? And of course, it doesn't mean that you spill all of your shit on the very first date. I don't really give a fuck what you do. All I really care that you do is that you show up and you express yourself openly and honestly in your connections. Do not be low-hanging fruit. Because the guy who wants low-hanging fruit is not your soulmate. Or the version of the guy who wants low-hanging fruit is not your soulmate. Find somebody else. And I'm not telling you to go and find somebody else. I'm saying don't have an availability for that shit. I don't do zone of excellence in my life. I don't do zone of excellence in my relationships. We don't even have time to get into exactly what I mean by that. So I'm just going to leave that at that. I don't do zone of excellence. I'm a woman living in and pursuing her zone of genius. I'm a woman who is living on the leading edge of creation. That is who I am. That is what I do. That is who I choose to surround myself with. And I hold the expectation for my soulmate to be on that same kind of time. Period. What expectation are you holding of men? And now I'm talking too much because we go deeper into that in the Love After Loss course. That's all that I have to say. I really, really, really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to go even deeper in your relationship with men, your relationship with divine masculine energy, healing those wounds of abandonment from how your father didn't show up, male caregivers didn't show up, men in your past didn't show up. If you want to heal that abandonment, release that pain, learn how to build out the belief that you get to have a man in his zone of genius, a man pursuing his zone of genius, a man who shows up, a man who lives in his divine masculine energy, a man who is committed to expressing his divine masculine energy, because we don't have to be perfect. If you want to learn how to build out the belief that you get to have that kind of man, how to set the expectation in your own mindset and your own energy that that man is your destiny, your purpose, then the Love After Loss course is 110% made for you. If you want to learn more about the course, learn more about the contents of the course, and enroll, head to the show notes or the description if you're watching on YouTube. I love you so much. If you're on YouTube, comment down below. Let me know what your takeaways were. If you're listening on a different platform, send me an email. Send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. And other than that, I will talk to you on Thursday. I love ya and goodbye. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you laughed, learned something new, or just loved the time we spent together today, please leave a review of the podcast so that it's easier for the other Mirandas of the world to find it too. And if you want to connect with me between episodes, I highly suggest joining our free Facebook group using the link in the show notes. Love you lots, and I'll see you in the next episode.